Welcome, guys. Welcome to another session of Market Wrap. As usual, we have our research head, Mr. Pankaj Pandey, with us. Welcome, sir. How are you doing?
Hi, good afternoon, Gaurav.
या तो सर निफ्टी तो कहीं नहीं जा रहा है, जहाँ है वही है। मतलब इट्स सॉर्ट ऑफ होता है ना, एक रेस भागने के बाद थोड़ा ठंडा हो रहा है, पानी वानी पी रहा है। सो सर, दिस मूविंग ऑन इनटू न्यू कैलेंडर ईयर, फर्स्ट वीक ऑफ जनवरी इज डन। तो सर अभी मार्केट आगे, हमारे रिजल्ट सीजन आने वाले हैं, and we are seeing like many pre-updates as well in terms of banking sectors and all those things. So what do you think would be the main driver, sentiment driver for market going ahead in this quarter particularly?
So, a couple of things, Gaurav. One, I think Nifty consolidating at lifetime high levels I think, is very much normal, which is
Yeah.
happening. So, markets have ended almost flat. Good part is that correction was expected in mid caps and small caps, but they have rallied more than 2% each. But Nifty, despite the fact that it's flat, it's outperformed global markets because global markets have corrected.
Yeah.
So we continue to maintain a very positive stance on the market. So January, we expect Nifty target to be about 22,300 and support will be at 21,300 kinds. Largely because when you sort of look at the market breadth is pretty good. You have 88% of the stocks above 50-day
Yeah.
exponential moving average. So that way, I think things are looking good. Even the global setup is not so bad. So in fact, a lot of your key indices are expected to sort of challenge
Yeah.
new highs. So that way, I think the overall setup for the market continues to remain good. Now, there are some events which are lined up. So obviously, you have budget which is going to
Yeah.
come by, but since it will be a largely vote on account, so our sense is that it will not really have much of an impact. But you'll have quarterly numbers coming in from next week onwards.
Yeah.
So obviously that will have a good amount of impact on the markets. IT is expected to be subdued, so IT may not do much. But I think banking holds quite well. And like you said, the business updates for some of the key banks or banking in general has been pretty
Yeah.
robust. So that way, I think if your one third of the Nifty
Financials.
is in a good shape, then we would want to be bullish on the markets.
Absolutely. And sir, one sector which has really popped up in these last 10-15 days, the pharma sector. So are good days for pharma sector back? Can we expect rally in pharma sector going ahead from here?
So far, be very selective because you look at hospital as a space that is one space which is done very well from a price performance perspective. You still see a lot of private equity deals happening at pretty rich valuations. But I think the pocket which is probably looking good is the US exporters. I think that is where both margin plus sales recovery is expected. I think domestic segment is growing at 7 to 9%, so that's not much of a surprise for the pharma. But in general, companies who have got exposure to this, I think those are relatively better placed because pricing pressure is sort of easing a bit, and the volume and margin recovery is expected. So pharma, yes, is looking good. So sectorally, BFSI, pharma,
Yeah.
metals, I think these are expected to do well.
Absolutely. As you spoke about the business updates, I think most like HDFC has come out with its business update. I think South Indian Bank and Jammu Kashmir Bank. That's what I've read recently. And the one thing which can be seen is the credit growth has been really good for these banks who have released their updates. So what is the color you're taking going into the result season specifically for HDFC and ICICI? Because on 13th they'll start their results going ahead.
So on the credit growth in general, the growth is 16%, which is very healthy.
Yeah.
So there is a strong retail demand which is going on. There is a demand for working capital loans. So these are driving growth. I think the worrying factor for banking in general has been that most of the banks are chasing term deposits. So term deposits are sort of getting costlier. And while banks are sort of improving on their CD ratios, but CASA is something is still
Yes.
sort of subdued. Now, coming to specifics, I think Bajaj Finance clearly sort of stands out with 35% kind of a growth in AUM plus deposits also. And there was a concern that with the post RBI increasing risk weightage, probably the growth might sort of slow down
Yeah.
a bit. We haven't seen that. So that's a sort of a positive surprise. I think HDFC Bank, the credit growth is good at about 20 odd percent,
Yeah.
but I think the deposit growth is quite lagging. So I think that is where the challenge lies, and which is why I think the stock did not do well today. So deposit side, I think it was a bit of a subdued, I would say, for HDFC Bank. But if you look at some of the other banks like say IndusInd Bank, CSB, all of them have come up with a pretty robust set of
Yeah.
numbers. So that way, very little to complain for most of them. In fact, for a bank like Bandhan Bank, I think what was expected that the recovery will in credit growth will happen, and that is sort of panning out. So that way, I think that is also a sort of a pleasant surprise. Not to say that we like Bandhan Bank a lot, but in general, that is also seeing picking up.
So basically, the overall picture looks good. And I think going ahead in the results season, the commentary as well, the commentary on deposit per se from the banking of like the banking management would be very important. And NPN also is obviously there. So moving on, we had auto numbers and we saw some subdued December numbers from many auto players. So what is your take on this development here?
So December is usually a month where destocking happens because nobody wants to buy a vehicle of a 1 year old manufacturing.
Yeah.
So it's a very usual cycle when the destocking happens. So and that is what has actually come by. But I think the only surprising part was on the CV side. So CV saw a healthy month-on-month recovery. I mean, both trucks and buses. So that is an interesting part. And when you sort of look at player-wise, TVS continues to do well on the two-wheeler side. M&M continues to do on the passenger vehicle side, and on the CV side, I think all the players have been sort of doing well, including the Volvo. So from that perspective, numbers have been good on the CV side. I think in two-wheelers, there's some bit of a disappointment. So I think RE number below 70,000 was a sort of a disappointment. And Hero also reported flattish volume. We are not seeing recovery on the export front. So that is also sort of the same worrying sign. Then Maruti also, I think, when you look at the mini and the compact segment, continues to sort of struggle for them. The combined overall volumes have gone down below 50,000. Tractor also, we've seen double-digit decline across players. So while the numbers are muted, I will not take this as a serious trend because this is normally a destocking which
Right.
happens. And let's see how next month pans out.
Yeah.
So we're quite hopeful for the next month.
ओके सर मूविंग आगे जाने से पहले एक क्वेश्चन पूछूंगा टाटा मोटर्स 810 टारगेट वी रीच्ड अबाउ 800 मतलब मैं 10 पॉइंट तो डिस्काउंट कर ही देता हूँ आर वी प्लानिंग टू रिवाइज द टारगेट्स हियर और हैव यू रिवाइज्ड इट
So we will revise the targets for Tata Motors. See, we are entering into result season, so obviously we'll wait for how the result season pans out, especially the margin aspect. I think CV side, we're quite hopeful that the margins should be good. So let's see if those happens. And on top of it, there's some launches expected for by Tata Motors this year. So I think a bit of an update there. So I think once we
ओके
have a picture on that, we are quite hopeful that it will see a positive revision on the upside.
Absolutely. So basically, ones who are holding Tata Motors can hold, or you tell them to book some minor profit here?
I think they should continue to hold.
Okay, perfect. Because a lot of people are actually holding Tata Motors because इतने webinar किए हैं तो वो question आते रहता है. So viewers, you got your answer. Moving on, sir, one space which you were bullish going into 2024 was metal and mining sector, which you had said on our show 2 weeks back, and we are seeing good volume growth there as well. So what is your take on the sector? Because I know you're tracking it closely now.
So metal, we are still hopeful that around, but as of now, the prices are still subdued. So which is why we are still not sort of going full hog into metal companies, but mining is definitely a very interesting space which is coming out. Even if you look at the recent release numbers, I mean, NMDC delivered about or achieved a production growth of 24%, volume sales growth was 6%. So they're clearly doing well, and mind you, this was our yearly pick also. Coal India also came up with a good set of numbers. 72 million tons is what they produce, which is up 8 odd percent. So that is another company which is sort of doing well. Moil is another company which has come out with a
Yeah.
good number of, I think, up about 30 odd percent. So mining side, things are looking good. We would expect even the growth to be there, volume growth to be there even next year. And mind you, these all these companies are good cash flow throwing companies. Plus, with the prospect that they might enter into newer areas, which can open up further growth prospects.
Perfect. So basically, this sector also looks positive. I know this would be positive because you're tracking now. तो कुछ तो होगा इसलिए आप track कर रहे हैं.
Hmm.
Moving from auto to mining to power sector, there was some news around the draft tariff, I think, which has come out positive for the power companies. I have not read this news, so would you put some light on this, sir?
So CRC has come up with a draft paper on tariff applicable for year 2025 to 2029. So not major big changes, but one is obviously that the ROEs for thermal power plants have been kept unchanged at 15.5%. There was initially concern that probably it might get reduced. So keeping it same is good for a big company like NTPC. For transmission, it has been brought down to say from 15.5% to 15%. So bit sort of subdued for optically negative for power grid. But I think the positive surprise has been that the government wants to promote pump hydro storage, and which is where the ROEs have been increased from 16.5 to 17%.
Right.
So that is another positive. And I think one big concern with thermal power plants has been that if they are spending on, say, emission control equipment, because these are costly items, but these are required to sort of prevent pollution or to lower pollution. I think so. There, I think the government has put an ROE of about 14 odd percent. So basically, that's a sort of a positive news for the companies like NTPC because they would be spending good amount of money there, and even for the value chain. And so from that perspective, overall, this policy document is very positive for especially the hydropower companies like the likes of NHPC and SJVN.
Yeah.
Decently positive for a company like NTPC, slightly negative for Power Grid because while the ROE cut may not have much of an impact because today you see most of the bidding happens on a competitive basis. But so sentimentally, it's negative for Power Grid. But overall, I think this is one space which is interesting, and I am hopeful that post budget, this
Yeah.
might keep getting more interesting going forward.
Absolutely. Sir, I'm sorry, I'm asking it can be a very stupid question, but power companies doing well can be a good trigger for PFCs, Power Finance Corporation or something, the other RECs and the PFCs of the world.
Absolutely. So when you sort of look at any the kind of funding what is required. So if you have to put say 5 lakh megawatt kind of a capacity, your funding requirement could be closer to 30 lakh crore. Now banks obviously will have sectoral limitations.
Right.
So which is where I think PFC and RECs of the world need to come in, and if they are well capitalized, which is what they have been. So so obviously there is an expectation that they are going to fund a lot of these projects, and which again is good for them because typically you are funding to either government-owned companies or well-run private companies. So from that perspective, I think it's a good thing for PFC and RSC. Only issue is that they've run up quite fast.
Yeah. So that's the only thing. I think this would be an interesting space to see कि यहाँ से और जाते हैं कि यहाँ पे consolidate करते हैं. That's perfect. So sir, major news for this week are this much only. Before we come to hidden gems, sir, there is our viewer, Mr. Kiran Ghadge, KG is his name. So उन्होंने mail किया था last time. He wanted some he had some queries around Masters of Street, जो हम last time समझ नहीं पाए थे ना. So he had sent me a mail. So Kiran sir, I have forwarded your mail to Pankaj sir. He will go through all the queries and he said that he'll reply you after going through, and he'll cover your queries by sending you a reply properly over the mail only. So if you have any doubts there, वो वहाँ पे कर लेंगे. Sir, एक question उनकी तरफ से आया है on Nestle. I'll just read it out for you. So the question is, what should be suggested strategy on Nestle? Normally after the split, share goes into sleep mode or consolidation. Should we book profit or should we buy Nestle right now?
So I think FMCG as a sector in general, I am not really liking so much because see, one should understand that these companies are valued quite richly, excess of 55 times on a 2-year forward basis, which is not cheap. At best, you'll get about high single digit or low double digit kind of a growth. Margins are already good, so you have very limited scope
Hmm.
for margins to sort of keep going up. And one should understand that, see, a lot of companies like say HDFC Bank or Kotak Bank or Bajaj Finance or these FMCG names, so they did well when their peers were not really doing so well. Because you look at Bajaj Finance, that was the only retail NBFC which was there, and now you have a lot of
Right,
NBFCs which are retail focused. So you have
right.
competition, or you have alternate business models to sort of invest in banking. You have multiple banks which have come
Yeah,
up, including PSUs. FMCG also did well from the perspective that you had very limited pool of companies which were doing well.
yeah,
But now you have a lot more bigger pool, and which is
absolutely.
why on a standalone basis, while Nestle will continue to sort of keep delivering what it has been delivering up till now, but my fear is that they are not going to deliver the kind of price performance what they have historically delivered. So I wouldn't suggest to sort of increase holding in this company. Possibly, you can look at some other sectors where the growth rates are higher or where the
Absolutely.
potential for re-rating is higher.
Yeah, and we have anyway suggested a plethora of picks from different sectors, so you can definitely look at KG, sir. So there are a few more questions. मैं वो लेता हूँ फिर मैं head and short पे
Sure.
आता हूँ. Sir, one viewer is asking your view on Maruti Suzuki, as your recommendation is there. However, it has gone down below the stop loss of 10,300. 9.27% book, 50% of profit at 10,875. And he's trailing stop loss with 10,303 for remaining. So he basically is asking what should be done with Maruti.
So Maruti, if you look at within auto stocks, is not performing. Like I also highlighted, their bread and butter, which is mini and compact segment, is not witnessing growth. On the utility vehicle side, while the market, if you look at, is largely trending towards or tilting towards the UVs, the recent launches by Maruti hasn't done well. I think GV is really not has caught the fancy of the buyers. So I think bit of there. So I don't see this stock doing much near term. But you really do not have triggers. In fact, I think Tata Motors and others have a lot more triggers. So I think Maruti will continue to lag.
ओके परफेक्ट सो देयर आर टू क्वेश्चन जो आपने ऑलरेडी आंसर किया है मैं बोल रहा हूँ एसजेवीएन में पूछ रहे हैं एनएचपीसी व्हिच यू हैव सेड इज एनीवेज पॉजिटिव डू यू हैव एनी टारगेट हियर और यहाँ पे हम पॉजिटिव लेके आगे बढ़े
So I think NHPC, our sense is that one of their biggest projects I think will go for commissioning next year. So which is why our sense is that one should hold it for next 1 year because that is one stock which is looking good between the two. Otherwise, in general, both the stocks are looking good. I don't have a target as of now because all these stocks have rallied beyond our expectations.
Okay, that's, I think, you want to take further few more questions. IDFC First Bank. Annual, Asim Kejriwal sir, annual view on PSU banks. I think we are coming into result season. Once the results are out, commentary is out. I think that would be a best time to comment on the PSU pack right now. So we'll skip that question. Sir, IDFC first also, I think result season है banks we'll skip because दो हफ्ते में वो आ जाएगा. One is Gaurav Kumar is asking APL Apollo Tube. View on APL Apollo Tube.
So don't track the company, but I would want to sort of put one or two pointers on banks. So on banks, I think if you see recently we have been giving recommendations. So SBI we had given in Bharat Pek, we had in between given calls on Bank of India. Bank of India is still looking good to us. We had a technical call on PNB. Then
Central Bank.
we track, yeah. So we even had given calls on smaller private banks like DCB or some of the other names. So banking as a overall space is still looking quite good, and like you said, we'll sort of come up with even more better, decent upsides in some of
Yeah.
these names once the results are out.
Absolutely, absolutely. KG sir, with IT stock also, sir had said we're expecting some underperformance, subdued. IT would be subdued, and we have our results. I think first result would be Accenture
11th.
and Infosys. Yeah, 11th se we'll have our results. So right now, commenting on any company and big companies like that, it is better once the results are out and we comment there. So let's wait for a week or two, and we'll definitely come out with our coverage there. So sir, questions are done. So आपका view ले लिया गया है. Let's come to our main part, that is the hidden gem. आज का hidden gem sir कौन सा है?
तो देखिए गौरव, मार्केट में काफी सारी चीजें चल चुकी हैं, तो मैं थोड़ा डाइग्रेस करना चाहूंगा in terms of a recommendation, because I wouldn't want to sort of keep chasing the same momentum or same set of stocks, and which is why I would want to recommend Saregama India. यहाँ पे हमारा target price is 445. Now, interesting things are happening, especially if you look at on the advertisement side. So traditionally जो आपका advertisement होता था, TV में होता था, या रेडियो में होता, बट अभी दिस टाइम अराउंड इफ यू लुक एट डिजिटल जो एड है वो आई थिंक हैज ओवरटेकन प्रिंट एंड अदर एड, and which is why I feel that a company like Saregama should be a beneficiary of this trend, because see, this company has got a library of about 1.5 lakh songs, and a good part is that when you sort of look at they have got formats to sort of monetize. And interesting thing with songs is that while you might get bored with say a movie or a serial,
Yes.
but songs you sort of listen even a 20-year-old song. So monetization for songs happen over a long period of time, and mind you, most of these songs are already sort of paid for, and largely the cost is already out of the system. And which is why I feel that the licensing revenues from music should grow at 20-25%. So that is one positive. The other thing is that we are also seeing a trend where a lot of these streaming platforms. Now, if you sort of look at these streaming platforms, you get ads in between. But now you're sort of getting plans where people will pay an amount of say 70 to 100 odd rupees or some bit more to listen to ad-free music. So I think that is sort of picking up pace, and this company will be a beneficiary of that. And so we are liking this company from that perspective. Numbers ideally should improve from here on. In addition to that, they did an acquisition of Pocket Aces Pictures, so wherein they've got, I think, a base of nearly 10 million followers along with influencers. Which our sense is that they would be able to sort of use it for content acquisition as well as marketing. Absolutely. So combined basis, we are expecting pretty robust growth of 27-28% odd. And I think this company slightly different from current genre of stocks which are sort of rallying. But I think thoda trend change karna chahiye, which is why I feel that this company should do well from here on with a target price of 445.
440? 445. Great. The Pocket Aces is like millennials and 90 people would know. There's a show called Little Things. It is directed by and produced by them, so which was one of their major shows. तो सारे कमांड रॉयल्टी तो सर मिलेगी अब इनको सारे गाने में. तो सर आपका एक फेवरेट गाना बताओ जो पुराने जमाने का आप सुनते रहते हो. एक हो जाए सर, एक तो हो सकता है.
I'm still not able to recollect. You have caught me off guard.
I'll ask you next time then. मैं याद रखूंगा कि next time मुझे आपसे आपका favorite गाना पूछना है. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, viewers, for joining us. From next week, we are kicking with our result seasons. So action would be thick and fast coming from different companies and sectors. तब देखते हैं पूरा commentary. आपने IT sector पूछा, banking पूछा. We'll comment it next week में. So for now, let's take a chill pill for a week and let's come back next week. Thank you so much, sir. Always a pleasure hosting you.
Thank you, Gaurav.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to never miss an update from ICICI Direct.